She was slapped in front of 200 students, but what she did next silenced the entire school, exposed the real villains, and turned her into a legend. If you love stories of revenge, courage, and jaw-dropping twists, then stay till the end, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful tales like this. Meera Kapoor never expected that one ordinary morning would turn into the moment that defined her entire life, but destiny had always had a strange way of testing her, shaping her, preparing her for a storm she didn't even know she was strong enough to face, and it all began on a day when she was already running late, clutching her books to her chest as she rushed down the corridor of Crownstone International High, trying desperately to reach the auditorium before the morning assembly started because that day she was supposed to give her scholarship speech, a speech she had practiced for 3 nights straight, a speech her mother had helped her rehearse while sipping warm tea, encouraging her that this was her moment to shine, her chance to prove to the world that even a girl from a small 2-room home could rise beyond expectations, but as fate often does, it threw her into the path of the school's notorious trio, Kiara Malhotra, Tanya Roy, and Nisha Verma, the wealthiest, most arrogant, most venomous girls in campus, daughters of businessmen who had the power to turn teachers silent and students invisible, and the moment Meera bumped into them accidentally while turning a corner, her books flew and crashed onto the floor, the sound echoing through the hallway like a warning bell. Kiara's eyes sharpened, fury twisting her perfect face, and before Meera could apologize, Kiara lifted her hand and slapped her so viciously that the impact rang out like a gunshot, and suddenly the entire hallway froze, heads turning, footsteps halting, mouths parting in shock as 200 students gathered around, watching the scholarship girl get humiliated in front of everyone. Myra's cheek burned, her eyes stung, but she refused to let the tears fall because if she cried, she would give Kiara exactly what she wanted: weakness, fear, surrender, and instead she inhaled deeply, feeling something powerful rise inside her, something she didn't even know she had, a kind of fire she had only ever seen in heroes of movies, and she slowly lifted her head, meeting Kiara's eyes not with fear but with cold determination, and Kiara, startled by the unexpected strength, stepped back half an inch, though she tried to hide it. The crowd whispered, phones rose, someone began recording, but Meera didn't care. She simply bent down calmly, picked up her books one by one, dusted them off, and stood straight again, her voice steady as she said, "Thank you for showing everyone who you really are," and the hallway erupted with gasps because no one had ever spoken back to Kiara before, but that was only the beginning. Meera walked to the auditorium, gave her speech with a glowing red cheek but an unshakable spirit, and little did she know that among the audience that day was the school's new CEO, Aryan Singh Rathore, a cold, brilliant, arrogant 28-year-old businessman who had just taken over Crownstone's entire education chain after returning from the UK, a man known for firing incompetent staff within minutes and for his icy attitude toward everyone except his little sister, a man feared more than respected, and a man who, despite his ruthless reputation, found himself stunned when Meera walked onto the stage. He noticed the bruise immediately, noticed the whispers, noticed the way she held her head high despite everything, and in that moment something inside him shifted, the beginning of something he could neither explain nor control. After assembly, he summoned the principal, reviewed footage, and by afternoon the entire school buzzed with rumors that something big was about to happen, and indeed, the next morning Kiara and her friends were called to the conference room, where Aryan sat like a king judging criminals, his expression unreadable as he replayed the video, and then, in a voice so calm it was terrifying, he expelled Kiara for violence, aggression, and repeated bullying, leaving her father, a major shareholder, stunned, furious, and screaming threats that Aryan ignored entirely. The news spread like wildfire, but instead of being grateful, Meera found herself unexpectedly targeted even more because Kiara's supporters began spreading rumors, blaming her for ruining Kiara's future, claiming she had manipulated the CEO, and Meera started receiving hateful notes in her locker, whispers behind her back, even threats, but she refused to crumble. If anything, she grew stronger. What she didn't know was that Aryan had begun observing her quietly, admiring her resilience, noticing how she helped struggling students, how she tutored younger kids, how she defended the weak, how she carried herself with a quiet dignity no amount of wealth could buy. And though he tried to deny it, tried to bury it, he found himself drawn to her, thinking about her at odd hours, looking for her in the hallways, feeling a strange warmth whenever she smiled, until one evening, when tragedy struck. Meera was leaving school late after tutoring a junior when she heard a terrified scream from the parking lot, and without thinking twice she ran toward it, only to find a little girl, around 10 years old, surrounded by 2 masked men attempting to shove her into a van. and Mira didn't hesitate for even a second. She threw her bag at one man, grabbed the girl's hand, and yelled for help while trying to run, but one of the men pushed her so hard she fell onto the gravel, scraping her knees and palms, and yet she shielded the girl with her own body, refusing to let them take her. And just when the situation looked hopeless, Aryan appeared out of nowhere, having returned to pick up his forgotten laptop. Rage exploded through him when he saw the scene, and he charged like a storm, punching one man so hard he collapsed immediately while the other fled. He scooped the trembling girl into his arms, and that's when Mira realized the girl wasn't just any child, she was Aryan's little sister, Ashi, the person he loved more than anyone in the world. Aryan turned to Mira, his voice shaking, "You saved her, you saved my sister," and Mira, bleeding and exhausted, simply nodded before fainting in his arms. Aryan carried her to his car, rushed her to the hospital, called the best doctors, and stayed beside her bed the entire night, watching her sleep, feeling emotions he had never allowed himself to feel. When Mira woke up, confused and still in pain, she found the CEO sitting beside her bed with worry in his eyes, real worry, not the cold mask he usually wore, and for the first time, she saw him not as a powerful businessman, but as a man with a heart, a man capable of feeling deeply. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, an unspoken connection, a spark so intense they both felt it in their bones. But fate wasn't done with them yet. The next week, Kiara's father launched a smear campaign, spreading lies about Mira, accusing her of orchestrating the attack to gain sympathy, bribing staff, manipulating the CEO. The media latched onto the story, reporters swarmed the school gates, and Mira's reputation was dragged through the mud. Students turned against her again, teachers grew distant, and even her scholarship was put under review. Mira felt crushed, suffocated, betrayed by the same system she had worked so hard to excel in, until Aryan walked into the press conference with evidence that not only cleared Mira, but exposed Kiara's father for funding illegal activities connected to the kidnapping attempt. The room exploded, reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, and Kiara's father was taken into custody on the spot. Aryan then turned to Mira in front of everyone and said, "You don't deserve any of this. You deserve respect, and from now on, as long as I am alive, no one will ever lay a hand on you again." And the world stood still. Students realized the truth, guilt flooded many faces, and slowly, Mira's life began to rebuild. But something had changed permanently. The bond between her and Aryan grew stronger, deeper, unbreakable, rooted not in drama but in shared battles, mutual respect, and unspoken love. He began walking her to class, she began teasing him about his serious nature, he started bringing her lunch, she started helping him understand students' struggles, and everyone in school could see it. The CEO was falling for the scholarship girl, and the scholarship girl, though hesitant, was falling for him too. But the biggest twist came when the education board tried to remove Aryan from his position out of jealousy and political pressure, and he was asked to defend himself in a meeting that would determine his future. That day, Mira stood up in front of the entire board, confident and fearless, and spoke for 20 minutes straight about how Aryan's leadership had changed the school, protected students, improved systems, and upheld justice. And her speech was so powerful, so sincere, so unshakable that even his toughest critics had no choice but to vote in his favor. After the decision was announced, Aryan found Mira alone on the terrace, staring at the sunset, and he walked toward her slowly, his heart racing, his breaths uneven, and he whispered, "Mira, that day you stood up for yourself, that day you saved Ashi, that day you saved me, I realized something. I don't want a world where you're not beside me." And Mira felt tears fill her eyes, not from pain but from the overwhelming joy of finally being seen, valued, loved. Aryan gently cupped her face, the same face that had once been slapped in front of 200 students, and this time, that same girl held the power to change the life of the most powerful man in the building. He leaned closer and said, "I love you," and Mira whispered back, "I love you too," and just as they shared their first kiss, the wind carried the whispers of every student in school who had once laughed at her, because now, that girl had risen higher than any of them could ever imagine, and in the end, the slap that once broke her pride became the spark that lit her destiny, the moment that changed everything, because Mira Kapoor didn't just survive bullying, she conquered it, transformed it, and turned it into a story the world would never forget. Asterisk.